Hello everyone, Cameroni here with a freshly polished 3.27 League Start Guide for Vaal Ice Nova of Frostbolts Occultist. I am not League starting Ice Nova for the first League in what feels like forever, and it feels kinda sad and nostalgic. But I figured I'll at least update the League Start Guide for anyone interested in trying it out, changing things up slightly with some lessons learned from 3.26. In case you're curious, I'll be League starting Glacial Cascade, which feels like the second cousin to Ice Nova. It's a smoother and faster starter in my opinion, it's easier to gear early on, and it's not relying on uniques at all to feel really good. If you're looking for a smooth and fast and easy League starter, I'd highly recommend Glacial Cascade over Ice Nova. But if you're set on Ice Nova, this is still very viable, it's still very good. I've done it several times. So, that's just my disclaimer here at the beginning. My plan is to transition from Glacial Cascade to Ice Nova, my beloved, once I have a decent amount of currency to go crazy on this. All the footage in the background is from my 3.26 Ice Nova Goddess that I spent way too much currency on and is currently nerfed from having no merc. But I had such a blast, and it's still a blast to play even if I don't have enough mana to cast as fast as I should be casting. Which is what we will be experiencing in 3.27, which leads to this next section here for changes from 3.26. This build is mostly the same as it was in 3.26. This is just me doing some testing and throwing a fresh coat of paint on it. One major pain we need to deal with is the loss of Shaper's Seed on our Mercenary, which gave us strong mana regen and ES regen, as well as determination and endurance charges that we got from the Mercenary. In case you haven't watched my previous videos, to properly calculate mana regen needed for Ice Nova of Frostbolts, you need to ×2 the mana cost in Path of Building, which means that we need to regenerate somewhere between 300 and 350 mana per second. On the flip side, it makes it extremely quick to trigger Arcane Surge so that the added DPS from that is actually there nearly all of the time instead of only sometimes, like with some builds that have a lower mana cost that throw in Arcane Surge, because it does add a lot of damage, but it's not up all of the time. I digress. Here are some potential solutions to the loss of Shaper's Seed. Number 1, we use Liege of the Primordial, Forbidden Flesh, and Flame for golems, and use golems for mana regen along with Clarity, since Ice Nova of Frostbolts is a thirsty hoe. As a bonus, we get a bunch of other cool stats from golems. I won't explain them here, but it's an option, an expensive option. Number 2, we drop Awakened Increased Area of Effect, since it doesn't really give us a whole lot except joy and happiness and increased area of effect. And we replace it with Inspiration, which means slower Arcane Surge build-up for us, which means our DPS is further from the projected max DPS in Path of Building, unless you're constantly casting to keep Arcane Surge up, which I rarely ever am because I don't need to because everything's dead. Much sadness, but it's a lot cheaper than Liege of the Primordial. Option number 3, we go Elementalist instead of Occultist and grab Forbidden Power, Flesh and Flame. Also expensive. Also makes me feel icky somehow, like I've sullied something sacred to me. Number 4, we change up the passive tree a bit to path south to the reduced mana cost nodes and take some other goodies while we're down there. But we're already really passive point starved, so we'll either lose a lot of damage, a good amount of AoE, a lot of leech, a lot of armor, or spell block. None of those are very good options in my humble opinion, but we can make it work. One positive thing that we do get from pathing down there is there is a fantastic jewel slot to put in Unnatural Instincts in that gives us 36% increased area of effect, gives us a bunch of ES regen, gives us a good amount of mana regen, and some other goodies. Option number 5, we hope and pray that there's a graft or other league special that fixes our problem magically for us, like Mercenaries did in 3.26. A final note on this, we can fix this up to mid-budget with just the passive tree and a lightning golem. On the passive tree you can get +1 golem and 80% increased effect of your golems. Once you start doing super juicy endgame strats, your golems will get clapped. They won't auto-revive because you won't have Liege of the Primordial, which leads you to an early grave for when your mana regen fails you. On to problem number 2. We lose quite a bit of armor and ES regen, which we got from our Aurabot Merc, who was pretty much only good for Determination and Shaper's Nasty Seed. Some potential solutions to that. Option number 1, again, Liege of the Primordial. Curse you golems for being so seductive. Or option number 2, we get a crap ton of RMR. You can fit an RMR essence on your chest, you can swap out the Cyrus helmet for a well-crafted Redeemer plus Warlord helmet with +1 power charges, increased RMR, some other nice stats, you actually gain some armor and ES and only lose out on 3 to 4% DPS. But you also lose some mana regen and mana that you get from the Cyrus helmet. And with all of this mana reservation efficiency, in the end game we will still also need a small cluster to fit in Determination. Before the super end game, when we aren't going for Purity of Lightning and 90% all resistance, it's not nearly as difficult to fit Determination in. You just throw it in Enlighten. Option number 3, we live with it and we die slightly more often to physical damage. Option number 4, we hope that some magical league shenanigans answers our pleas for more tank and recovery. Other than that, everything is exactly the same. The rune graft, the tattoos, all of the unique items, everything is still there from 3.26. They haven't made any significant changes. Hopefully the grasping mail mods are still available, but that's only needed for the super end game when you're crafting your chest. And there may be some crazy 3.27 unique tech that lets us drop the Relicash boots because Malachi's Loop and Toolfall won't eat our power charges anymore. So, you know, a man can dream. That would be sick. I'm also planning an alternate route to Relicash boots where we just generate power charges and lose out on one power charge by swapping to a Giga crafted staff. This was inspired by my work and research on Glacial Cascade. Stay tuned for how that goes. I did change up the passive tree a bit. I changed some item mods a bit to make the build theoretically better, in my opinion, using lessons that I learned from last league. Moving on to the campaign. This is the same as my previous 3.26 video, but I'll go over it again here briefly. There are notes in the path of building as well for what to do. If you're going to league start this, take some time to familiarize yourself with all of those and what you need to do through the acts to speed up your time. Unless you're running for the very first time, in which case I highly recommend that you just enjoy your playthrough of the campaign and don't do what us Giga Juicers do and just blast through it as fast as you can so that you can continue blasting as fast as you can until you burn out and weep in divines. Anyway, I did a test run again recently just to make sure that this can in fact make it through the campaign without feeling terrible, and I was right. It's not as good as some other league starters, as I've stated before, but it is still really good. The early campaign is the same as it is for every other witch. You start with Rolling Magma, plus Flame Wall, plus Holy Flame Totem. You use that until you finish Act 1. Just before you kill Merveil, you get Ice Nova as a gem reward. You can swap before Merveil, and I have before, but it's easier and faster to kill her with Rolling Magma and then swap at the beginning of Act 2. In Act 2, you'll link Ice Nova with Arcane Surge and added cold damage. Once you get Controlled Destruction, you use that instead of added cold damage since we don't usually have enough dexterity to level added cold damage very much, making it fairly worthless. And the lost crit chance from Controlled Destruction doesn't matter that early. Also in Act 2, grab a Cold Snap Gem as a quest reward and corrupt it in the Vaal Temple as you're running through it. Hopefully you get a Vaal Cold Snap Gem that makes your run quite a bit easier and faster since it's an easy frenzy charge generator, which boosts your shield charge speed, it boosts your DPS, and it can be used in boss arenas. If you don't get it, you can trade an Alchemy or Chaos for one as you get them. You should spend your early currency, though, on an Ice Nova of Frostbolt skill gem over Vaal Cold Snap. It's just if you have some extra, you can get it. And then we'll ditch Vaal Cold Snap later on in maps. In the first lab, go for a blue Transfigured Gem. You're looking for Ice Nova of Frostbolts or Frostblink of Wintry Blast. If you don't get those, which you likely won't, try and select a gem that you can sell or trade for Ice Nova of Frostbolts, since it's a big DPS boost on bosses. Seems like there's a lot of builds, what I've seen so far, that are going to be using blue gems, so you can likely get one that you can sell and trade for Ice Nova of Frostbolts. If you don't get it early, don't worry too much about it. Normal Ice Nova is good enough for the campaign, and I've done several runs with it. It's just a bit slower and more painful. And if you are slower in your league start, then you can farm the third lab, which is a free lab to run, to get the Ice Nova of Frostbolts gem. You can also get a bunch of other skill gems for it, so it's a really good way to farm up some currency and get yourself geared before maps. In Act 4, you'll get golems. I like to grab the node that lets us get a second golem, which I talked about earlier. We're not Elementalist. We don't have Liege of the Primordial, so you may need to resummon them from time to time when they die, but they do make a big difference, especially the Lightning Golem. And then it's smooth sailing from there. Your first currency drops, like I said, should go towards Ice Nova of Frostbolts first, Vaal Cold Snap second. If you get even more on top of that, you can look for some good leveling uniques for the campaign and early maps. Reverberation Rod is one of my favorites. It's a good way to get a 6-link early. And the rest of your campaign, you're just picking up upgrades, fixing resistances, fixing your gem sockets and links. Highly recommend gambling for that, and prepping for maps. Moving on to maps. White maps are easy. Yellow maps is where you'll start to struggle a little bit if you haven't been looking for upgrades. And then red maps, you'll struggle a lot if you haven't been doing any upgrading through the maps. Profane Bloom is your best friend for later yellow and red maps. Get a Mark of the Submission Ring, throw in Frostbite or Tempt Chains if you're really struggling, and let Profane Bloom carry you until you need to fight Pinnacles. You can also go for another Curse on Hit Ring or the Asenoth's Gentle Touch Gloves. Fighting Pinnacles is a bit more difficult with this build than some other League starters. To make it easier, we use things like Frost Shield, if we can fit it in to boost our crit chance and give us some more EHP, since we mostly just stand still while we're wailing on the boss. We double curse, we inflict exposure with Frost Bomb before we have exposure on hit gloves and things of that nature. All of these combine to make boss fights possible, and often pretty easy if you have decent gear, if you've been upgrading as you've been going through the maps. If you're really struggling with Pinnacles, you can respec Profane Bloom and grab a third curse. That way you can curse with Temp Chains, Elemental Weakness, and Frostbite, or you can throw an Assassin's Mark or another curse, however you want to do it. You should be able to get 3 Void Stones without needing any expensive purchases. Uber Elder will be much easier, and you'll have a much better time in that fight if you have the Relicash Boots, Toolful, and Malachai's Loop set up, which is always hard to predict the price of. When I got mine last league, it was only 4 Divines for all of them, because everybody wanted Frenzy Charge or especially Endurance Charge boots. Then Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice became popular and the prices skyrocketed. This league, Forbidden Rite of Soul Sacrifice got nerfed indirectly quite a bit, as did Elementalist with the Liege of the Primordial nerf, so it'll hopefully be cheaper, but you never know. Sounds like there's a lot of hype around Cast While Stunned, Wander, Bows, and the like, so hopefully our untouched caster gear will be cheap. When you decide to go into tier 17 maps and you're still on a budget, I highly recommend Temp Chains Curse on Hit. I've mentioned it a couple of times. It makes your tier 17 maps much more enjoyable, even if it is a little bit slower because you don't do as much damage. You can get that either with gloves or Mark of Submission Ring. That plus your chill effect makes the mobs so much less scary since they can barely move. The boss will still be scary since it doesn't have as much effect on bosses, but they're always scary in tier 17 maps. That's all I've got for this League Start Guide. If you want more info, feel free to watch my videos from last league. You can also pop into my Twitch channel if you see me streaming. I stream on occasion. You can whisper me in-game. You should be able to just do @Cameroni, and that'll reach me. Leave comments. There's a lot of ways to contact me. You can also watch my Ice Nova videos going back further than this. I've published quite a lot of info on Ice Nova over the last few years and charge stacking, which in general, though not all of it is up to date anymore. I also have more specific notes in the path of building, like I mentioned earlier, so if you are going to League Start this, make sure you look those over. I'll let you know in another update video later on when I swap back to Ice Nova on how I fix mana problems and tank problems. In all likelihood, it'll be a Golem, since it fixes both problems at the same time. And on a lower budget, you can just run 2 Golems and resummon them when they die and you'll be fine. They won't die very often until you start doing juicy content. As always, please leave me feedback in the comments below, ideas if you have any for solving problems, cool things you figure out, or tell me constructively how I can improve. I'll catch you next time.